In order to be prepared for higher education, we need to take a glimpse into the world through the eyes of those living it. Hi, I'm your host, Ashreya Sirivol. I have questions about the future, which is why I am going to deep dive into the journeys of college students and graduates, exploring the majors and paths they've chosen. Welcome to Scholar Stories, the podcast, where we bring you practical advice and inspiring stories. Today, we have Nithya Kailad, a graduate of Olathe North High School in Olathe, Kansas, and a sophomore at the University of Minnesota. She is double majoring in chemistry and chemical engineering, getting both her Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Engineering. Other than academics, Nithya is also an amazing flute player. Welcome to the podcast, Nithya.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit.
Of course. As we begin, can you tell us what inspired you to double major, what exactly double majoring is, and how it's been going for you?
Yeah, so I initially got interested in the idea of studying something along the lines of chemical engineering or material science. Based on my experiences doing things like Science Olympiad in high school, I had a really good experience taking AP Chem in high school, and also always been interested in environmental waste management and sustainability. And so I thought that studying something like chemical engineering would be a really good fit. And then when I went to the University of Minnesota, I learned that it was pretty feasible in terms of the course load that you would have to take on the chemistry major as a double major. When I was in high school, I was pretty unsure about whether I wanted to study a more like pure science, a pure lab science, or go the engineering route. So I think the opportunity to dip my toes into both is really cool. So that's why I chose to double major. And double majoring, for those of you who aren't familiar, is basically when you study two different majors. And so there are, some different ways you can do this. You can do a dual degree, which is when you get two different bachelor's degrees. For example, a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science, or a Bachelor of Engineering. And a double major is when you study two majors, but you get one degree. And that's just going to depend on the school that you go to and the degrees that you choose. I think so far, since there's so much overlap between the chemical engineering and chemistry curricula, I don't really feel like I have a ton of extra coursework, even though I technically do have a second major.
Yeah, it's so cool that your AP classes and your passion inspired you to pursue chemical engineering and chemistry, and double majoring sounds really interesting. Speaking of those majors, can you define and explain what those majors do?
That's a really good question, because I've seen a lot of memes on the internet about how if, ask an engineer what they do for their job, they can't really tell you. Chemical engineering usually has to do with upscaling chemical processes that have already been discovered so that they can be more feasibly used in like an industrial setting, a manufacturing setting, to create large amounts of like soap, for example. Like a chemist is more likely to create a soap formula, and a chemical engineer is likely to create the process that's going to upscale it and create like thousands and thousands of, liters of soap to be distributed, for example. And so yeah, it's kind of like a small scale versus a large scale thing.
Yeah, the soap example was a really good way to describe those fields, and they sound really interesting to do in college. So, speaking of college, why did you decide on the University of Minnesota to pursue chemical engineering and chemistry? Did anything stand out to you about the program or campus?
So it's actually a good question, because when I was applying to college, I didn't really have any dream schools or any goal schools or anything like that. I had no idea where I wanted to go to college, and I was still a little bit unsure if I was going to study chemical engineering, material science, or chemistry. I kind of just went to like lists of, schools that had strong chemical engineering programs, because I didn't really know where to start. And at the University of Minnesota, I think there are a lot of different research opportunities there, which is one of the most important things that I was looking for at a school, and it also has it's well known for research in material science, specifically polymer science and polymer chemistry, which is good. That's kind of something I'm interested in. There's also the National Science Foundation Center for Sustainable Polymers, which has a branch at the University of Minnesota. So I thought that would also kind of bring some good research opportunities in an area that I was interested in. So I think that was kind of the main thing. It wasn't too far from home. I'm originally from the Kansas City area, so those are kind of the main things. And then I liked the aspect in terms of, the location, that it was in a city and it wasn't in a super rural area, so there are some things to do.
Yeah, I'm sure that the campus is big and beautiful, and research opportunities are always helpful, so it's great that the University of Minnesota has a lot of opportunities to get those. Speaking of research, you are a research assistant at the University of Minnesota. Can you share how you got that opportunity and what you're doing there?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned, picking schools based on research opportunities was super important to me. Looking for a research group to join was one of my first priorities when I came to the university. And so I was kind of looking at different labs in the chemical engineering department and also in the environmental engineering department, and that's a good piece of advice I guess I would have, is to look outside of your department. Like, let's say you study chemistry, you can look in the Department of Biomedical Engineering, for example, for research opportunities, or you can look in the Department of Chemical Engineering or something like that. There are actually lots of chemists in the research group that I'm in, and so I found this research opportunity in the Department of Environmental Engineering, where the professor was taking people of all grade levels, I guess, in college. So she was still taking first years, as opposed to, some other professors who wanted a person who had finished a certain second year class, for example. So I reached out to her. I did have to send a few emails because, professors definitely have a busy schedule. So I did have to reach out more than once. But I emailed, and just spoke about my interest and, how I got interested in environmental engineering and chemistry, and expressed interest in the projects that she was currently working on.
That's great advice to look for research opportunities because they can definitely be helpful in the long run. And what you're doing as a researcher sounds really cool. You're also an amazing flutist, learning and teaching other students. Can you talk about any concerts you've participated in and any memorable moments you've had while learning the flute?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for this question. So I've been playing for about 11 years. I kind of took a break for my first year of college just to get used to being in college, but I was still playing a little bit here and there as I could. I obviously participated in several band concerts in my high school band, which was a very fun experience. And so I got to play a lot of, very fun music that way and meet people at school, which was really nice. There are many memorable moments that come with teaching other students. I taught as part of a little research project that one of my friends did, where some violin players at school wanted to learn the flute, so I taught them to play a couple of things like Hot Cross Buns, Mary Had a Little Lamb, from scratch, which was pretty challenging but a lot of fun. And also the students that I've had a couple of students over the last couple of years, and it's been really nice to be able to see them progress and play the full musical range of the flute technically, and to develop their skills, play all 3 octaves and things. It's very memorable to see them grow and see their confidence build, which is really nice.
It's so impressive that you've been playing the flute for 11 years, because that's a really long time. And it's so cool that you've played with the Navy. That sounds like a really amazing experience. It's also great that you're able to teach other people who want to learn the flute. Let's keep talking about your time in high school. In your senior year, you won 2nd place in the senior chemistry division of the Greater Kansas City Science and Engineering Fair. Can you talk about your project, how you got the idea, and the amount of work and time you put into the project?
Yeah. So I was actually in a class at school. It was kind of a science elective class where we were encouraged to do research projects and submit them to the Greater Kansas City Science and Engineering Fair. So some people, chose to work with professors, and some people chose to work independently and do their project independently. I happened to do my project independently. I actually did it in a corner of my AP Chem teacher's classroom. I just plugged in a little incubator in the back and got some flasks and all the materials I needed. But the project I did was kind of about enzymatic degradation, so enzyme breakdown of sugars called oligosaccharides in beans. And as for the amount of time and work I put into the project, I wish I had put in more. I don't exactly remember, but I would say that I used the work and time by reading a lot of papers about the concept that I was trying to replicate, reading a lot of papers about similar experiments, and similar simulations. As for the amount of work, I would say it was mostly reading and not as much doing. But yeah, so I would say it was probably several weeks worth of time and effort.
Sounds like a really interesting project, and the way that you got that idea is really cool too, because it's kind of like you were examining what people were actually eating and doing and putting that idea in your project, which is really awesome. So you were also in many activities and clubs. Can you talk about some of those clubs and any leadership positions you were in?
Okay. Was definitely pretty committed to Science Olympiad. That was one of the clubs that I've, enjoyed participating in since I was in middle school, and it was really very rewarding to work with my team members and win competitions and stuff like that. And also just, improve our performance, improve, for example, our technical writing skills when we wrote lab reports. And I think it's very student driven. It's not like a teacher is making you do this. Nobody was making us do Science Olympiad. At least for my friends and I, our parents weren't making us do it. It was just something that we did because we were interested in learning about science. And so I think it kind of gives you some self-directed work and some autonomy over some goal that you're choosing to set. And I think it's very satisfying when you achieve those goals because they're a little bit more personal. It's not like getting an A in a class where you feel like you have to get an A and, there's so many interactions like, do you have a good teacher? How much homework do you have? This is strictly based on the interest you take and how much time you put in. So that was really rewarding. And a lot of, the upperclassmen, so when I became a senior, a lot of us kind of helped advise the younger students, which was really nice because obviously if you benefit from something, you don't want that to be lost on people who come after you. So, it was nice to kind of help younger students grade their practice tests, whatever it was, in Science Olympiad as an older student. And then as for other leadership positions, I was one of the co-presidents of my school's Asian Culture Club. It was a very relaxed club. It was not super serious. It did not, meet all the time. But we held a few events and celebrations every year, and it was really nice to just give people a space to talk, relax, and learn a little bit about something that they didn't necessarily know about before, because not everybody would know about Diwali, not everybody would know about the Mid-Autumn Festival. And so it was really cool to celebrate those with other people and just give a relaxed environment during, a busy high school year.
Yeah, it's inspiring how you had your own passion to achieve your goals in science and those science competitions like Science Olympiad. And it's also so cool how you were able to be the co-president of the Asian Club because you're able to share the culture with everybody. You were able to manage all of those clubs, flutes, and internships. How were you able to balance your time?
Thanks for that question. That's something I actually still think about now because I think in college everything feels like it takes so much longer. And when you get to college, you might see a lot of these memes and meme videos and stuff about me in high school doing a million things, me in college, taking like 5 hours to do one homework. But I definitely think that I just had a lot of energy and passion for those things. And so those just became my priorities. And I knew that if I didn't put my effort into things that I wasn't energetic and passionate about, then I wouldn't really have the energy to do other things. So in a way, it was kind of like filling my own cup, even though it sounds like a lot of work. It was something that was very like stimulating and very rewarding. In a way, I was better able to do other things because I did those things. I think I was also good about not taking on too much and also being flexible. Some weeks I wouldn't really practice the flute that much, and some weeks I would practice a lot. I think it's important to just make sure you know why you're doing everything, and to not take on things just because you think it looks good for college applications. Like, if I was gonna get, for example, my perspective, if I wanted to get 30 hours of volunteering, that wasn't gonna win me any awards. But I really felt like I was making an impact with those 30 hours, spending those with flute students, teaching them. I cared more about the way that I felt doing all of these things in order to, I guess, be intellectually stimulated rather than to just do extracurriculars because I felt like it was expected of me.
It's so great that you have that passion. It's a great way to manage your time, focusing on a set of different things each week to finish everything that you need to do. So, what are your future plans or aspirations after completing your undergraduate degree, and how do you see your experiences so far helping you achieve them?
This is another one of those questions that I also ask myself all the time, because I'm not really sure. I guess the two biggest paths are, going back to school and doing more school. For example, getting a PhD or getting a master's. Another option is to go into industry and work as a process engineer or something like that. For example, to use that soap example that I was using earlier for soap manufacturing, I could go into research and development for that. I could go into optimizing the manufacturing process for a company like that. So I'm not sure if I want to go the industrial world or the academic world, because both come with their different benefits and drawbacks. I am really interested in research. I do want to do a PhD. That's definitely something, that is definitely something I have in mind as a possibility, but I'm not sure yet if I'm fully interested in that. But as far as my experiences so far, I think getting involved in research in something that you're interested in is really good for helping you decide if you want to pursue education past your bachelor's degree. And don't limit yourself, because you can definitely learn from most experiences.
Those sound like some really cool jobs, and it always comes down to what you want to do, of course. Now, let's talk about your college applications. Did you use any counselors, and if so, were they helpful?
I did not use any counselors. I had my school counselor, because usually a college application might ask for a counselor recommendation letter or something like that. I didn't have any college consultants or anything like that. I kind of just Googled and watched YouTube videos of counselors on the internet, or my parents were definitely very helpful in the process of talking to other people's parents and stuff like that. But it was just from kind of hearing the experiences of people who had already applied to college. There were students at my school who had already applied, who were already in college, who had graduated from my high school. And so they sometimes came back, to visit teachers at the beginning of the year, and they would talk about their experiences in college, but no formal counseling services per se.
Even if you didn't have a counselor, listening to other people who have gone through the same process is also just as helpful, which is why, of course, I'm doing this. So, majoring in chemical engineering and chemistry, what do you think was the strongest thing on your college applications?
That's a good question. I think essays are really important in your college application, because I think the most important thing on your college application is having a reason why you're doing your extracurriculars, why you think it's important, why you want to pursue a certain major. just something that makes your application compelling, and something that shows that you're dedicated. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you won first place in like an international competition or something like that. So I think the strongest thing on my college application kind of differed from school to school. I know that there were some schools that asked about extracurricular activities that really had an impact on me. And so those essays that I wrote about those, I would write about like a little moment in Science Olympiad or something that I still remember, that kind of piqued my interest in polymer chemistry or in environmental science. I think it also depends on what you want to do in college. You know, let's say you taught a lot of students in high school through like a volunteering or a tutoring service or something. And let's say, you know, maybe you aspire to become a professor or you want to be a teaching assistant at your school. I think it's really important to set up these like traits about yourself in your college application that you really want to highlight. I don't think I have a strongest extracurricular though. I think it was more so stating how my extracurricular activities influenced my passion for things. So for example, I really liked teaching people different concepts, or I really liked messing around with different chemicals and things like that.
You participated in many clubs and activities, so you probably had a really well-rounded application, but what you said is really good advice, like working on your essays and how important they are to compel those colleges. If you had more time, is there anything that you would have done on your application?
I'm not sure about more time, but I think if I were more informed, I would have put more effort into my essays. I know I said that, you know, the way you portray yourself is, you know, the strongest thing on your college application, and I think it probably was for me too. But a strong thing, you know, strong thing is just anything that stands out. So, I think the best way to make yourself stand out is in your essays, because you look really mechanical until that point. I mean, not necessarily, but you look more real, I guess, once they read your essays, because you are human, and that definitely needs to come through. So I think I would have probably not been as afraid to give specific examples or specific thoughts and experiences that I had that in my extracurricular activities that shaped my interests. I think it's really important to not just talk about the future and what you want to do at a university. I think that was probably a weak point for me, but to, you know, draw back from your past experiences, your extracurriculars, and say, this is why I want to do this. So I would have probably spent more time talking about my extracurriculars than I did, because I think I kind of, you know, stated that I was passionate, and I stated that I was passionate because of my past experiences, but I didn't do the best job, I think, of showing exactly how.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because now we know that stating how on your college application and essays would be a lot more useful than just being, you know, mechanical, like you said.
Right, so, like you don't want to have them try to figure something out. You know, set yourself up in the best position for sure.
Yeah. Did you take the SAT or the ACT, and what do you think is a solid score to apply to the University of Minnesota?
I took the ACT. I took it in my junior year. You can take it whenever you have time. That's my advice. But a solid score, I think it depends on your major. Like, for example, if you're studying engineering, your math score is probably important compared to, like, if you're applying to, you know, arts and humanities, if you're, you know, applying to study history or economics or pre-law or something, then maybe your composite score is more important. But your math score is probably almost as important as your composite score if you're studying something like engineering. So it just kind of depends. I would say anything in the mid to upper 30s is always nice to have, because it increases your chances of getting scholarships. But I would definitely say that there are students who perhaps don't have as high of an ACT score, and they end up getting into very strong programs, or they end up getting a lot of scholarships. So I would say it's important to do your best, but also to not count yourself out just because of one single thing. Like, oh, I don't have the ACT, don't have the extracurriculars. Obviously, higher is nicer for scholarships, though. So if you want money from the University of Minnesota, it is nice to get. I think everyone I know who has a score in the mid to upper 30s generally got a pretty decent scholarship. So I think, focusing on scholarships is also as important as getting in.
That's great advice to focus on those scores. And finally, what's your favorite way to enjoy yourself when you have free time or need a break from studying?
That's a good question. I think my favorite thing is to go on a walk because I'm always sitting. And I always say that I'm always sitting. Like, I'll go see someone, like, I'll go hang out with a friend or something, and they'll be like, oh, sit down, and I'm like, oh, I was just sitting all day. So I think it's really important to, go to the gym. I really just like taking walks and, wandering around and doing nothing. So, yeah, I like to, go outside when the weather's nice. Obviously, the weather's not always nice in Minnesota, so I'll just like walk around a building with one of my friends or something like that. But I think it's definitely just good to not think about anything at all and actually take a physical break from sitting and just remove yourself from the environment. It's very enjoyable for me, for sure.
Yeah, being outside is always a great way to get your mind off things. Thank you so much, Nithya, for sharing your journey. You shared a lot of interesting points, and I learned a lot from you today. From science to the flute, you are just very inspiring, so thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much. I was very happy to share.
Remember, the journey to college is unique for everyone, and exploring different majors and career paths can open up exciting new possibilities. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to stay tuned for more inspiring stories from different college students and graduates. Until next time, this is Ashreya Siruvol signing off from Scholar Stories.